I discovered the illegal structures the HOA was building, and when I found out my land was what was being used to construct it, I said to myself, I don't need to fight for what legally belongs to me. I knew they had finally fallen into my trap, and it was time to enjoy it. This realization marked the beginning of a journey that would expose corruption and challenge the very foundations of property rights in my community. It was a moment of clarity, a moment of vindication, but also a moment of great responsibility. I had inherited a 200-acre farm from my grandfather, a legacy that had been in our family for generations. As I stood there, looking at the sprawling construction, I couldn't help but think about the countless times my grandfather had told me stories about this land. He spoke of it with pride and a sense of stewardship, always emphasizing the importance of protecting it for future generations. Little did I know, those stories would become the foundation of my fight against the HOA. The Sunny Pines HOA had been expanding rapidly, and their influence was felt throughout the neighborhood. They had built homes, parks, and even a small shopping center, but this latest project was different. It was massive, with over 100 marketplace shops being constructed on what they claimed was part of their development. But I knew better. I knew that this land was mine, and they had no right to build on it. My journey began with a simple phone call from Mrs. Thompson, a neighbor who had known my grandfather for decades. She alerted me to the HOA's construction on what she claimed was my land. Initially skeptical, I soon realized the gravity of the situation upon visiting the site. The sheer scale of the construction was overwhelming, and it was clear that this was not just a minor encroachment, but a deliberate attempt to usurp my property. The farm was not just a piece of land. It was a symbol of our family's history and resilience. I had always been busy with my city life, but this inheritance brought me back to my roots. My grandfather had been a pillar of strength in our family, and his passing left a void that could never be filled. However, his legacy lived on through the land he left behind. I remember the day I received the news of his passing. It was a mix of emotion, sadness, grief, but also a sense of responsibility. I knew that I had to protect and preserve the land for future generations. My grandfather had always spoken about the importance of family and tradition, and this land was the embodiment of those values. Growing up, I would spend summers on the farm, learning about agriculture and the importance of hard work. My grandfather would tell stories about our ancestors, who had worked tirelessly to build a life from scratch. Those stories instilled in me a deep respect for the land and a sense of duty to preserve it. The farm was located in a rural area, surrounded by a community that had grown significantly over the years. The Sunny Pines HOA had been expanding rapidly, and their influence was felt throughout the neighborhood. They had built homes, parks, and even a small shopping center. The community had welcomed them initially, seeing the development as a sign of progress and growth. However, over time, concerns began to arise about their aggressive expansion tactics and disregard for property rights. The HOA's influence extended beyond just physical development. They had a strong presence in local politics, often using their wealth and influence to sway decisions in their favor. This created a sense of unease among longtime residents, who felt that their voices were being drowned out by the HOA's powerful lobbying. Despite these concerns, the HOA continued to expand, often using tactics that were questionable at best. They would buy up land from unsuspecting owners, sometimes using coercion or manipulation to get what they wanted. It was a system that favored the powerful and left the vulnerable behind. Mrs. Thompson had always been a kind soul with a heart of gold. She had watched me grow up and had a deep affection for my family. Her call was not just a warning, it was a plea for help. When I arrived at the farm, I was met with a scene that left me speechless. The HOA had begun constructing over 100 marketplace shops, with signs indicating it was part of their development. The sheer scale of the construction was overwhelming, and it was clear that this was not just a minor encroachment, but a deliberate attempt to usurp my property. I remember feeling a mix of emotions, anger, frustration, but also a sense of determination. I knew that I had to act quickly to protect my family's legacy. The first step was to gather evidence and understand the full extent of the HOA's actions. I began by reviewing my grandfather's original property surveys, which revealed discrepancies between the recorded boundaries and the actual land ownership. This was my first piece of evidence against the HOA. As I went deeper into the matter, I discovered that the HOA had been using tactics that were both aggressive and underhanded. They had manipulated records, influenced local officials, and bullied anyone who dared to question their actions. But I was not one to back down. I had a strong sense of justice and a determination to protect my family's legacy. The construction site was bustling with activity cranes, bulldozers, and workers rushing to meet deadlines. It was a stark contrast to the peaceful landscape that once was, a testament to the HOA's aggressive expansion tactics. As I walked through the site, I couldn't help but feel a sense of betrayal. How could they so brazenly disregard the law and disrespect my family's legacy? The signs they had erected proudly declared the area as part of Sunny Pines, with no mention of my ownership. It was a clear attempt to legitimize their actions and intimidate anyone who might question them. The community around me seemed divided. Some were excited about the new development, seeing it as a sign of progress and economic growth. Others were fearful, knowing that the HOA's influence could lead to further encroachments on their own properties. But I was determined to stand up for what was rightfully mine. Upon discovering the construction, I knew I had to act quickly. I began by reviewing my grandfather's original property surveys, which revealed discrepancies between the recorded boundaries and the actual land ownership. This was my first piece of evidence against the HOA. The surveys were detailed and precise, showing that my land extended far beyond what was currently recorded. I spent countless hours poring over these documents, cross-referencing them with current maps and records. It was a painstaking process, but every detail was crucial. I knew that the HOA would stop at nothing to discredit me, so I had to be meticulous in my approach. The HOA had been manipulating records for years, slowly but surely, expanding their territory through a combination of coercion and deception. It was a sophisticated operation, but one that relied heavily on intimidation and influence. I decided to reach out to local expert surveyors, lawyers, and community leaders who could help me understand the full extent of the HOA's actions. Their insights were invaluable, providing me with a clearer picture of the legal and political landscape. As I dug deeper, I uncovered potential fraud involving local officials and the HOA. The surveys showed that my land extended further than what was currently recorded, which meant the HOA's development was unauthorized. I decided to file for an emergency injunction to halt construction immediately. The decision to file for an injunction was not taken lightly. I knew it would be a bold move, one that would likely provoke a strong reaction from the HOA. But I was determined to protect my property and expose the corruption that had allowed this situation to occur. The legal process was complex and time-consuming. I had to gather all my evidence, prepare detailed arguments, and present my case to the court. It was a daunting task, but I was driven by a sense of justice and a desire to see the truth revealed. As the court date approached, tensions rose. The HOA began to apply pressure, using their influence to try and discredit me. They claimed that I was trying to stall progress and harm the community, but I knew that their actions were nothing short of theft. The day of the hearing arrived, and I stood before the judge, my heart pounding with anticipation. I presented my case, laying out the evidence and explaining the discrepancies in the property records. The HOA's lawyers were aggressive, but I remained calm, confident in the strength of my argument. The judge's decision was a turning point. The court granted the injunction, ordering the HOA to halt construction immediately. It was a victory, but I knew that this was just the beginning. The HOA would not give up easily, and I had to be prepared for the battles ahead. This was a significant victory, but it was just the beginning. The HOA and local officials were not ready to concede, and the battle was far from over. The days following the court decision were tense, with both sides maneuvering for position. the HOA launched a public relations campaign, attempting to portray me as an obstructionist who was standing in the way of progress. They claimed that the development would bring jobs and economic growth to the area, and that I was selfishly trying to block these benefits. But I knew that their actions were driven by greed and a desire for power, not by any genuine concern for the community. Despite their efforts, the community began to rally behind me. Neighbors who had been intimidated by the HOA's tactics began to speak out, sharing their own stories of harassment and manipulation. It was a turning point, as the HOA's influence began to wane and their actions were exposed for what they truly were. The legal battle continued, with the HOA appealing the injunction and attempting to find loopholes in the law. But I was prepared. I had assembled a team of lawyers and experts who were dedicated to seeing justice served. Together, we worked tirelessly to build a strong case, using every piece of evidence to prove that the HOA's actions were unauthorized and illegal. Looking back, I realized that this fight was not just about my land. It was about standing up against corruption and ensuring justice for my community. The original surveys were instrumental in providing legal evidence and identifying potential fraud. They were a tangible link to my family's past, a reminder of the sacrifices that had been made to build and protect this land. As I reflected on the journey, I understood that it had changed me profoundly. I had always been a private person, content to keep to myself and avoid conflict. But this experience has taught me the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it is difficult or unpopular. The community's support was a source of strength and inspiration. Seeing how my fight had empowered others to speak out against the HOA's abuses was a powerful reminder that individual actions can have a profound impact. It was no longer just about me or my land. It was about creating a better future for everyone in the community. I also realized that this experience had given me a new perspective on family and legacy. My grandfather's stories about our ancestors and their struggles to build a life from scratch took on a new meaning. I understood that protecting this land was not just about preserving a piece of property. It was about honoring the sacrifices of those who came before me. The journey taught me the importance of perseverance and the power of legal documentation. It also highlighted the need for transparency and accountability in HOA operations. As I looked out at the land, now safe from the HOA's encroachments, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. It had been a long and difficult road, but in the end, justice had prevailed. The experience had also given me a new sense of purpose. I began to work with local organizations to advocate for property rights and to ensure that no one else would have to go through what I did. It was a way of giving back to the community that had supported me, and of ensuring that the lessons learned from this experience would not be forgotten. As I stood on the land, feeling the sun on my face and the wind in my hair, I knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to overcome, but I was ready. I had discovered a strength within myself that I never knew existed, and I was determined to use it to make a difference. This story is a reminder that property rights are fundamental and must be protected. If you're facing similar challenges, don't hesitate to seek legal advice and stand up for what is rightfully yours. It's crucial to remember that you are not alone in this fight. There are resources, available experts, community organizations, and fellow homeowners who have faced similar struggles. I encourage everyone who is watching this to take action if they see injustice happening in their community. Whether it's a dispute with an HOA or any other form of encroachment on your rights, know that your voice matters. The power to create change lies within each of us, and collective action can lead to significant reforms. If you're unsure where to start, begin by documenting everything. Keep records of correspondence, meetings, and any evidence that supports your case. Reach out to local authorities, legal aid services, or community groups that specialize in property rights. And most importantly, don't be afraid to speak out. Your story could be the catalyst for change in your community. The experience has been transformative, not just for me, but for my community. It's a testament to the impact one person can have when they choose to fight for justice and transparency. As I look at the land my grandfather left behind, I know that his legacy is safe, and our story will inspire others to do the same. This journey has taught me the value of resilience and the power of community. It's shown me that even in the face of adversity, standing up for what is right can lead to profound change. I hope that my story will inspire others to take a stand, to fight for their rights, and to never give up in the face of injustice. As I reflect on the past few years, I am filled with a sense of pride and accomplishment. Not just because I won a legal battle, but because I helped create a more just and equitable community. I know that there will be more challenges ahead, but I am ready. I am ready to continue fighting for what is right, and I hope that you will join me in this journey. To everyone who has supported me along the way, family, friends, neighbors, and legal experts, I want to express my deepest gratitude. Your encouragement, advice, and unwavering support have been invaluable. Together, we have shown that even the most powerful entities can be held accountable when we stand together for justice. And to my grandfather, I want to say thank you. Your legacy lives on not just through the land you left behind, but through the lessons you taught me about resilience, integrity, and the importance of standing up for what is right. I hope that I have made you proud